Avyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So, what we saw in the last class is that there is this whole teaching tradition, and the original source of knowledge is Ishvara, and it is transferred from the person. The first, who was the first one who got it? That is one good question, right? So this is how it is like, who gets it first? According to this, the rishis in the Vedas, the rishis got it first. And because they were prepared. And this is exactly the same as in any other discipline. Who got the laws of gravity knowledge first? Newton, right? But today you don't need Newton to teach you, there is a teaching tradition. Who got the fact that time and space is relative first? Einstein. So our teacher was so open-minded. He said they are all rishis. Rishis are the ones who see it first, certain reality. So the rishis are, so in this case, the rishis saw the reality first, and then it was passed on. Now, in order to get this knowledge, what we saw is there are two lifestyles which are prescribed in the Shastra. One is that of Karma Yoga, the other one is that of sannyasa. Now, he says both of them are okay. You can't categorically say one is superior than the other. Neither you can say Karma Yoga is a primary step. You can't make a chronological kind of a step and say, oh, Karma Yoga is when you just start, and later on as you become more advanced, you become a sannyasi. So these kind of ideas that we have, but Krishna says that is not the case. In fact, he's saying both lifestyles are fine. It may seem as though sannyasa is easier because you are giving up all the roles and you are devoting your whole life for study and contemplation. So you will get to the knowledge of Atma faster. And what he says is, actually, if you prematurely take sannyasa, then it can be dukkha abdum ayogata. Ayogata means if you are not prepared, it will what? Give you dukkha. Why will it give you dukkha? Because anything that you have not addressed, anything that you have not faced, anything that you have shoved behind, necessarily will surface. Events will happen where all these things will begin to surface. And it will throw you off. And when it throws you off, and if you are hiding within the garb of Vedanta, then you almost get caught in that role, and then you try to camouflage it, and then it leads to sometimes adharma. And then you are farther away from the pursuit than closer to it. But that doesn't mean every sannyasi is like that, not at all. If you are ready for it, wonderful. There are people who are contemplative, there are people who just feel that that's what they want to do. That's okay. But not as an escape. Then Karma Yogi, on the other hand, he says that staying in this world and using every situation and every opportunity to what prepare oneself can actually get it really fast. And one thing I wanted to mention, a lot of people come to me even now and before, and when they talk about, when I talk about personal growth and people they say, yeah, I wanted to do this and I'm not able to do this, so they have some intention and then they feel as though they are not always able to walk the talk, in the sense that they are not able to implement the intention that they have. And what I want to generally say to everyone is, that's okay. Don't expect that you want to do something and from tomorrow everything will happen exactly according to what you want to be. There is this whole thing of habit which is very much there. And Surya will tell you there are all these brain circuits which are all, all your natural behavioral patterns are actually so well formed and so well entrenched in your brain. So there are so many automatic behavioral patterns that we have. And to undo that is not that easy. And it does take time. So therefore, and while you are doing it, please don't enter into this self-critical, self-judgmental mode. Generally what happens, oh, I want to be like this, but I can't be like that. So again there is some kind of a, I can't do it. There is what happens is, little bit change your story. It is very important how you talk to yourself. Say that yes, I would like to do it, right? And this time I couldn't do it, but next time I'll be more careful. That's a much more, I'll be more alert. That way you don't enter into self-criticism. Because these ideals that Bhagavad Gita are talking about are really, they take years of effort sometimes. It's not always that easy. So in this period of time, when you are making an effort, be kind to yourself. See, you can only give kindness to others if you are kind to yourself. If you are self-critical, self-judgmental, you will always, that's how you feel, that's what you will give. So therefore, it is not kind to yourself, doesn't mean you just indulge and whatever, that's not what I mean. Alert and yet kind. So that is a very important quality to have in your whole journey of growth. Now, so that means a karma yogi can get it, and what? Sannyasi can also get it. Once the person gets it, then what? So the verse explained that then also it is a matter of choice. There is no rule that the person who gets it will either just stop doing anything or the person will engage. It depends. But the fact is, what is karma and what is akarma is not what the definition of karma and akarma is not whether you are doing activity or you are not doing activity. Whether you are doing activity or you are not doing activity, it is karma as long as you have ignorance of knowledge of karma. And the same activity will become akarma for you when you know the nature of Atma. That means whether you are active or not active doesn't matter. You are akarta if you know Atma to be free from action. So that means it is nothing to do with engaging in life or not engaging in life. It is to do with knowing the reality and having a ready mind to know that reality. That's all. So these are the things which are very, very important and very fundamental to understanding. Otherwise, you always, almost everyone is made to feel as though if you are active, oh, you're only a karma yogi. That means you have a long way to go for knowledge. And people who have taken sannyasa have this little bit of inherent sense of superiority that, oh, now we have advanced, we don't need it. And you don't, these are the things, ideas that Lord Krishna is not subscribing to. So therefore, both use your life to grow and get this knowledge. What you do for it depends. What is your inclination? What is your position in the scheme of things? What are the circumstances? All that decides what you do for what is the choice of lifestyle. So now, in this whole thing, the next topic is meditation. So the next verse is Prashantatma Vikatabihi Brahmachari Vrate Stitaha Manasayamya Machittaha Yukta Asita Matparaha. It's a nice as you begin to live a life of a karma yoga where you are undoing your loads, one of the indicators is you become Prashantatma. What is Prashantatma? You become somebody whose mind is either tranquil, or you can say you can become cheerful. The sign of a spiritual person is not that, oh, the person is like, very serious and indifferent and uninterested and still looking. Actually, you become tranquil and you also become cheerful. Why? Because you are connected very intimately, and while engaging in the action, you are still, Sander came to me and it's a very, very true thing. He said somebody told him that you're now, see, we generally think that when you're really active, then you're stressed out and then you need a break. So what do you do in the break? Go on a vacation. So any action will lead to stress, and then holiday will de-stress you. This is our common understanding. What you need to do, if you really want to become a karma yogi, while you're acting, you can be relaxed with a change of attitude. That doesn't mean you won't go on a holiday. You may still go on a holiday, but it's not like the working means stress. That equation you have to undo. So therefore, the cheerfulness will come even though you are highly engaged, right? Then, Vigata bihi brahmachari vrate stitaha. So that means, now, the one who is free from fear. So now, there is a whole thing about fear is something which fear stands for all the emotions, right? So the emotions that we all have, some of the emotions are taken care of when you live a life of karma yoga. By doing what needs to be done, you avoid guilt, you avoid fear, you avoid many things, suspicion, you avoid many things, right? And when you take the result as coming from Ishvara, you also avoid blame, you avoid self-depreciation, you avoid many things. But the emotions, there's not only a place from where we accumulate our emotions. There are many other sources and there are many other causes for the emotions. So that means there are emotions, and here one of the most fundamental emotion that every human being has is fear. Fear is a very inbuilt. So therefore, there needs to be some work on one's emotions too, directly. Karma Yoga will take care of quite a bit, but there are still other things which still need to be taken care of. So, Vigata Bihi Brahmachari Vrate Sthitaha. Now, how do you, things which are lying in your either conscious or unconscious mind, which have a certain emotions, how do you take care of them? That's a big question. How? So this is where, obviously, I think psychology definitely helps, but Bhagavad Gita is not talking about that. Bhagavad Gita is talking about meditation as a way to deal with what some of the deepest emotions which are lying inside, buried inside. Because during the classroom, you're only using which part of your mind mostly? You're mostly using your cognitive mind, right? Trying to understand what I'm saying, trying to relate it to, your life or whatever. But do you have during the class time enough time to look into yourself? You don't. So that means you need some extra time, because your issues, your life story, your lifetime is your unique life. And unless you sit with yourself and get a little bit of insight into what's going on with you, the teacher can just talk about, let's say, here and there some stories about jealousy and some stories about sadness and some stories about anger and fear. But the teacher cannot address you, because you have your own story and you have your own things. So that means every human being has to do that job. That additional effort of looking into yourself and getting well, healing yourself. That time you don't have during classroom, that time you may not have when you're engaged in action and activities. So that is your meditation time. And how do you get rid of all these emotional baggage that you have been carrying here? The way to heal yourself is what? Mana Sanyamya Matchittaha. You have to bring Ishvara in your life. There is no other way you can totally heal yourself. You go to a psychologist and then what? The psychologist will start talking about your life. Oh, you have this, and oh, my mom did this and my dad did that. And then what happens? Ultimately what happens? Now you say, now I understand, my mom was really like this, therefore I'm like that. You haven't totally healed yourself. Because the question still remains, why did she do that to me? You may still understand that, okay, she was herself a little bit helpless, but still. So therefore, Ishvara is the tool that you use, and this is what he says, sit thinking of me and having me as the ultimate goal. So now we need meditation according to Vedanta has 2 steps. The whole definition of meditation in Vedanta is what? Saguna Brahma Vishaya Manasa Vyapara. What does it mean? Manasa Vyapara means mental activity. And what is the subject matter of the mental activity? Relating to Saguna Brahma. Saguna Brahma is Ishvara. So that's what Lord Krishna is saying, Mat Asita Mat Paraha. Sit with me and become this person who is what Vigata Bihi, free from the emotional loads, who then becomes cheerful, and then the reality will be clear. So that means, now, how do you bring Ishvara to address some of the deepest feelings that you have? Since the verse mentions fear, I will just give you, let's talk with an example of fear. Now, one thing that we all must understand, that when you deal with any emotion, and when I say you have to work with the knowledge of Ishvara, it means that no human mind can eliminate emotions. If your goal of life is to get rid of all fear, you will be stuck, because it will never happen. Why? Because there is a human, what we call, within your human brain, there are centers of fear, which actually nobody can avoid, or nobody should avoid also. Why? Because if you go to Bombay, and if you pretend you have no fear, and then you start crossing the road when the cars are coming fast, you may end up in the hospital. The mechanism fear is an instinctive mechanism for your survival. And it's a part of a program. You can't erase the program. The same program which makes you look here and there, especially in India when you cross the road, the same mechanism makes the in the Masai Mara National Park, the deers, when they come to drink water early in the morning, the deers come to drink water early in the morning, and what do? They drink, exactly. They drink a little water, they look here, they look there. How? Why? Because they know that there is somebody, or the lioness is around. She knows exactly that the deers are going to come and drink water. This is the easiest way for her to catch the prey. So therefore, they look here and there, and if a lioness, they see it coming, what do? They all run, they flee. That is required. If the centers of fear were not there, they would all be dead. That gives them the survival instinct. They all run. Some days the lioness cannot chase them. Some days she'll able to get one. So therefore, the first thing to do in your changing the landscape of your emotional life is not to label emotions. If you categorically label the emotion of fear as negative, and to totally try to eliminate it, you are working against laws of Ishvara. Then, when Lord Krishna is talking about Vigata Bihi, what is he talking about? He is talking about something which is what we call not this instinctive fear, which is part of the human program. He is talking about certain psychological fears that we carry within ourselves. That means there are these are the fears which are result of our story that we have created for ourselves. They are not the result of fears which are very normal, natural fears that are required to live life. So that means this is the fear, this is the work that we have to do. Because we have created a story in which it has given us a lot of anxiety, a lot of fears, a lot of insecurities, and we need to change that story. So that means, let's take an example. The example of fear. Do you have any example? Otherwise, I'll give one example. Okay, one simple example of psychological fear is that simple example that a friend of mine who comes to my retreat quite often, she said she belongs to quite wealthy family, and she goes to she's invited to parties and things like that, and she tells me that in the party so much of the talk is about, they're all wealthy people, but all the talk about, what if something happens and they lose their wealth. And anything can happen. Demonetization. Everybody went crazy. So that means that was a real event. But in general, there is so much, the thing is, the events have not yet occurred. They have not yet lost their wealth. But there is some kind of because there is one thing which is a fact. What is a fact? You don't know what tomorrow is going to bring you. That is a fact. So the fact that tomorrow you don't know what is going to come to you, it creates what? Fears. And from that fear, if you begin to make decisions, then what will happen? You will see, if you have a fear of losing your wealth, what will you do? You will become stingy. You always want to hoard. There are repercussions of this fear that you are carrying, and there is suffering. So therefore, one thing that we have to understand is there are certain things, certain fears are legitimate fears which require the external situations, require that fear, and some things are our self-created anxieties. Now, if it is a self-created anxiety, what do? You first need to detect it. You have to tell yourself, hey, I have fear. If you are in a denial of that fear, the fear will rule you. You sit with your fear and see where is it coming from. What are the implicit assumptions? What is your story? And how much of this story is based on facts? And how much of this story is based on your imagination? And if it is your imagination, what do? You come back to reality. Slowly and gently, without self-judgment. Ask yourself a question. Instead of saying, oh, I have fear, ask yourself, but why do I have this fear? Then you yourself have to give an answer to that. then when you give an answer, ask yourself one more time. So is this assumption that I have, is it true or is it just my postulation?
Isn't it the story of the snake and the road? That you can't really see clear when the mind is...
Yes. So that's why you have to sit with it and you have to talk to it. Otherwise you will not be able to do it. Because how will you ever address your fears? Unless you sit with them. We are so afraid of sitting with our emotions. We are always looking for an escape. We give one story or the other and say, nah, I can't do it. And that's why Vedanta is attractive. Atma is Brahman. Wonderful. Who cares? Mind is mithya. Easy. But doesn't work. This is why Lord Krishna is saying that. Vigata bihi. Address, the emotions are not going to get automatically erased unless you change your patterns of thinking. Otherwise, what is going to happen is, one is your cognitive side, which understands Vedanta. The other function of the mind is what? The emotional side, which has its own logic, which has its own assumptions, and it keeps parallelly operating. You need to align your whole thinking patterns with this knowledge. And in order to do that, you need to detect your patterns of thinking. Sit. First is accept your emotion. Don't try to dodge it. Second is, having stayed with the emotion, try to see what is your story. And in that story, detect your imagination. And slowly and gently, what you do is come back to reality. The whole growth in Vedanta is also based on realities. Vedanta is reality based all the way. It is not positive thinking based, it is reality based. The ultimate reality is the reality. Karma Yoga is also based on reality of dharma and reality of result not being in your hand. Swadharma is also based on reality of you have a very unique position in the scheme of things and your actions matter. And changing your emotional landscape is also based on reality. The emotions are there, you can't erase them. And the only way that you can really have that freedom that Vedanta is talking about is first dealing with your emotion at an empirical level. Now, what can happen is sometimes you are not even able to detect what are the imaginations and what are the facts because it is difficult. That's when prayer is extremely effective. Pray. Learn to pray. Learn to ask for help. Pretending I'm great and I'm this thing will not work. This is why we have prayers. One of the most beautiful prayers is Gayatri Mantra. One of the most beautiful. Why? Because in Gayatri Mantra, what are you asking for? Clarity of thinking. Because sometimes we are so confused, we are not even able to detect where we are going wrong. That can mean in this situation what I should do or should not do. Or how do I deal with my emotion? Sometimes the emotion takes over, it's overwhelming. You lose the capacity to discern. You find yourself helpless, just like Arjuna did. Arjuna was not an ordinary person, he was brilliant and versatile and good at everything. Overwhelmed by emotions.
So it's basically asking for help.
Asking for help. This is also part of intelligent living. To see your helplessness and ask for help. And who will you ask for help? To whom can you go? Everybody is equally helpless. Right. Now everything comes only to Ishvara, so the next verses are going to talk about what is this Ishvara. Everything is like this one little box out there where everything is attributed to. So now we need to explore a little bit. So we will do that. But the one thing that you need to understand here is, and once you ask for help, and there is another thing that you can do is see the order, the larger picture. As I say, nothing happens in the universe just randomly. So that means if you have fears because of one reason, let's say, I will tell you one. I was thinking about a story. So now I have a story of fear. So this fear story, and it happened just now. I had a friend who was visiting me in Paris, and she had multiple fears. One of traveling alone, secondly sleeping alone at night. So what happened is, so then she was afraid, but she really kind of wanted to experiment and try. So I just asked her, I said, why do you have this fear of sleeping alone at night? So she tells me that when she was young, she had a nanny who was looking after her. And the nanny, when they look after you, what is their interest? That you sleep as soon as possible so that they are free, right? So she used to tell her every night, if you don't sleep now, some ghost will come from outside. So now imagine a little child being told every night that somebody will come. So that is all fear-based. Then what she will do? She will go to, she will have a lot of fear, but out of that fear she'll go to sleep. Now, she is an adult, she is the mother of 2 kids, and she still can't sleep alone. Unaddressed fears. So now, this is her personal story. Certain events did happen. And they did have an impact. You can't erase the impressions. Even if she wants to get rid of fear, she can't. So that means you constantly need to remind yourself that as a child, I did feel like that, and it was okay to feel like that. Any child would feel like that. Which child will not have fear? Tell me. This is how it is. But now I'm an adult. I don't need to live the life. My emotional life need not be like a child's emotional life. I have a faculty of choice. This walk, you have to do a self-talk. heal yourself. And you have to, every time that fear comes, you have to be really, don't be critical. Oh, again I have fear. No. It's okay that you have fear. You can't erase it overnight, but you're going to try. Every time remind yourself, now I'm an adult. I need not be imprisoned by what? The experiences and the corresponding emotions that those experiences gave me in the childhood. Otherwise you get imprisoned. Your emotional life gets imprisoned. So therefore, you have to slowly free yourself from it. And on the days that you are afraid, what you have to do? You have to pray. And also self-talk, both. Help yourself and ask for help. Don't only ask for help and think that Ishvara is going to do everything. There's some magic stick which will do everything. That doesn't happen either. So this is how slowly. Now, what you can also see is the fact that there is the kind of a psychological order here. Right? There is a psychological order which makes that this event happens, this is the outcome, and this outcome is something which cannot be erased overnight, but if you work on it persistently, it can go over a period of time. So that means when you are working on yourself, if you expect overnight changes, that will also not happen. Because you have to work with laws of Ishvara. What is the laws of Ishvara? The law of psychology is one of the manifestation of law of Ishvara. That you have to be persistent, you have to try, and don't expect the results overnight. Then what you do is make your life alert and you move towards your goals without putting this pressure on you. So this is where you have to bring in Ishvara and at the same time make your effort. Slowly, what happens is emotionally you begin to get well. First one issue, then what? Some second issue will emerge. It's not like we have only one thing. We are like, Swamiji used to say, it's like Chinese noodles. You pick up one, by the time you eat, the other one comes. It's okay. No problem. Fun. Make it a fun project. Right? Because why is it a fun project? Every time you undo a confusion, it is an amazing emotional relief. It's a relief. You become lighter as a person. Prashanta. And all kinds of phobias, anxieties, they all will start to go slowly. And your connection with Ishvara will begin to be what? Stronger and stronger. So, this is the purpose of meditation. I'll talk about very briefly how Swamiji used to make us do meditation. Just a few steps so you have some kind of an understanding of how we did meditation. The first step was just kind of a relaxation where you relax your physical body. The second step was prana, looking at just your breathing very briefly so that your mind, there is some connection between your breathing patterns and your mind. So if you just watch your breathing, your mind becomes slightly quieter. The third step was what we call Japa meditation. What is Japa meditation? You select Japa. What is Japa? Japa is like this one mantra that you choose and you say that you will repeat it over, let's say, next 10 minutes. What are the benefits? But that mantra that you choose cannot be meaningless mantra. It is because the purpose of meditation according to Vedanta is relating to Ishvara. So generally the japa is what? Either Om Namah Shivaya, Om Ganeshaya Namaha. It can be anything. Now, what happens when you tell yourself that for next 10 minutes I'm going to do this mantra? Let's say Om Namah Shivaya. What will happen? You think all 10 minutes you will do exactly Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya? Forget it. What will happen is, after 3 chants, oh, Shiva, oh, I went to Whitson houses and I saw that Shiva. And she told me it's not from India, but what place did she go to? Where she got it? This is how the mind is. So that means it will go to something else. Now, the job that one needs to do in meditation is bring the mind back. In your normal course of action, this is how, during the day, this is how your mind moves from one subject to the other, to the other, to the other, and it just goes wherever. Now, when you give your mind the task of chanting one mantra, not for the whole day, but just for 10 minutes, you get an insight, and that is an important insight, that your mind can't do what you want it to do even for 10 minutes. You can't get your mind to do what you want the mind to do even for 10 minutes. You have no mastery. So therefore, what one needs to do is, this is a practice where when the mind goes away, what do? You bring it back. Without self-judgment, without self-condemnation, you just bring it back, gently and quietly. When you bring it back, then again it will go. It's not like only one time, it will go several times. Then what do? You bring it back. Then goes away. What will this do over a period of time? Tell me. Your mind will get distracted less number of times over a period of time. What it makes is, your mind is a little bit more focused than before. Now, but that's not the only purpose of meditation. Meditation is much more than that. There is a second benefit of japa, and the second benefit of japa is that generally not only we get distracted, we think in what we call the associative thinking. What is this associative thinking? It means, Surya gives an example in his business school, that imagine that you are sitting at your work desk, and then your boss passes, and every day he says hello, and today he didn't say hello. What will you think? Now your mind will start. What will you think? Oh, today he didn't say hello, and then, oh, maybe he doesn't like me. Oh, maybe, yeah, I heard that some other companies are, downsizing, and they are actually, firing some workers. Maybe he wants to fire me. So now what has happened is, from one little thing of boss not saying hello, where has your mind gone? I'm going to be fired. Where is the connection? But it happens so fast, and you have no evidence, it's all imagination, and you begin to, what? Suffer. So this is what we call the associative thinking. this associative thinking sometimes can make out of a small thing, such a huge story, and you start believing in that story, and your decisions come from that story. It's a disaster. So you have to curb the tendency of the mind to create such huge stories which have no basis. See, associative thinking is important. Why? It's not, please don't think associative thinking is bad as such. Why? Because this whole knowledge is what we do. First we talk about knowledge, then we talk about karma yoga, then we come back to lifestyles, then we come to, so it is all, progressing and building a story, really. So as such, there is nothing wrong with it. It is only something which is not conducive for your well-being when it has no basis. The associations are made based on no real facts. So therefore, what you need, this japa meditation helps in cutting this, making this associative thinking not just habitual making stories, only deliberate associations. How? What is the first chant? Om Namah Shivaya. What is the second chant? Not a build-up. What is the second chant? Same chant. Om Namah Shivaya. What is the third chant? Om Namah Shivaya. What is the fourth chant? Om Namah Shivaya. That means the mind is kept in one thing, which then curbs its tendency to create this, move through associative stories and create huge picture. When it is required, it is necessary. But many times our suffering comes not because of the external situation, but how we see this external situation. By the time we see it, we have made a huge, we see it in our mind, it's a huge burden. So therefore, this meditation helps in making you more deliberate and cutting this associative thinking unnecessary. Now the third benefit of japa meditation is, in between two chants, Om Namah Shivaya, there is what? Silence. Generally between two thoughts there is silence, but two thoughts happen so quickly that you miss the silence. We are not chasing silence as such, but the silence gives us a very important insight into I and the nature of mind and the thought. Generally, my whole self-identity is as good as what goes on in my mind. That I have no distance between I and the mind. This understanding the presence of silence, it helps. How does it help? You begin to be aware that when there is thought, I am there. When there is no thought, I am there. When the thought, then the silence is replaced by another thought, I am there. So I am the one who, in whose presence thoughts come and go. This is a very important, that is where you begin to make this whole knowledge your own knowledge. You come in touch with yourself, which you generally are not used to being in touch. So therefore, the japa practice helps in so many multiple ways. Now, the purpose of meditation is not yet over. After having done japa, you see the meaning of this japa, this mantra. Om Namah Shivaya. What does Om Namah Shivaya mean? Namaha, my salutation to Shiva. I will talk in detail about what is the nature of Ishvara, but for the time being, we can take it as this whole intelligence which has created from which all the forms come, by which all the forms are sustained, and unto which all the forms go. That intelligence which pervades everything. It pervades my body. Why? Because I'm not sitting and saying, oh, this wonderful chai that I drank, now you have done your job here, now you go there. In fact, if you ask me, where is it exactly, I don't even know. Where in my digestive system it is. That is getting it done. That is the intelligence we are talking about. We are not talking about some Ishvara, some unknown magical entity. The intelligence which is at work every second. The intelligence which enables me to talk and all the brain circuits to function, and also my eyes to see you at the same time, my ears to hear. Too many activities are taking place. As Surya was explaining yesterday, I said, I didn't understand half of what all the things he was explaining. And it's all so complex. Did you or me create it? So that means there is this intelligence, which is not just some imagination. It is there, doing its job for you and for me. So my salutations to this intelligence. Why do I need to do my salutations to this intelligence? Because I live my life not knowing its presence, whereas actually it is present everywhere. What is going to be my quality of life if I miss the presence which is the most pervading presence in the universe? I cannot but feel isolated. I cannot but feel small. I cannot but feel not connected. And I need to bring back all the joy and enthusiasm and all the connection in life, for which I need to incorporate the presence of Ishvara in my life. And in the awareness of that presence of Ishvara, I am going to heal my emotional life. Whatever that has happened to me, whatever it is happening to me right now, whatever will happen to me in the future, is not because somebody is bad and somebody is mean and the life is unfair. It's because there is an infallible order. The order of cause and effect, which is impartial. It doesn't do favors. It doesn't say, let's give goodie to Stefan because he's smiling today. It doesn't do that. It's not some person who's sitting and deciding who's going to get the favors. It is that infallible law which governs the whole universe. So that means whatever is going on in my life is in order. Order doesn't mean, see, we generally have a meaning of order as everything is good, then it is in order. If things are not good, then it's not in order. In fact, order means the cause and effect. Your definition of order has to change. What is in order has to change. Even if it is something which is non-pleasing to me, it seems, and it is non-pleasing, there is a reason for it. And when you begin to see this infallibility of the order, then you stop blaming. And you stop feeling miserable. Then you begin to find solutions. That the same order which has given me these situations, the same order gives me an opportunity to what? Change things. How? Through my free will, the kind of change in choices that I make. How am I going to be able to make better choices? A, that the same order also gives me an opportunity to learn. Makes knowledge available to me. Of how I can do it. If I help myself and ask for help, help will come. This is how it is. So therefore, all your emotional makeup, it all has to change by seeing that even in your pain, there is an order. And your ability to make painful situation non-painful is also part of the order. And in order to do it, you have to take initiatives that is also part of the order. Order all the way. Begin to learn to first understand the all-pervading presence of the order, the infallibility of the order, understand your own helplessness, and also your power, both. And begin to make the right efforts, which is in your hand. And for things where you feel helpless, ask for help through prayer. This is what we call Om Namah Shivaya. This is the meaning of the mantra. It's just 3 words, they are loaded. The meaning of these words is not ordinary, it can transform your life. The more and more Ishvara that you bring in your life, less and less of Jiva. Less and less of Jiva means what? The person who is helpless, the person who feels not good, the person who is stuck with all kinds of loads of emotions. All this will start changing. So this is the job that is meditation will do. And only you can do that meditation. The teacher can teach you how to do this meditation. The same meditation, final stage of this meditation is contemplation. When you have got well emotionally, when you have addressed all the issues which are all lying down, then the mind becomes naturally contemplative. Then all these, what you learned in the class about nature of Atma, it all starts being clear. and that is what we call Nididhyasana. The final stage, which is not technically called Dhyanam, but is called Nididhyasana. What Surya is doing in the class is what is Nididhyasana. He is making you reflect on the teaching, and he told you that this is the last step. Generally in the 3-year course, this what he is doing in the morning meditation is the last step, contemplating on the teaching.
Now we go backward.
So therefore, this is what he says. The growth part includes Ishvara and also staying with yourself and not ignoring your emotional life. Now, here he says, ultimately, what you're trying to accomplish. What's the time? 6:30. We've started a little late, right? Okay. Tam vidya dukkha sanyoga yogam yoga sannitam sanishchayena yoktavyaha yogo nirvinna chetasa. So therefore, here he says, now through this practice, what this practice and vidya, what is important is what he says, dukkha sanyoga viyoga. This is a word that Swamiji gave a lot of attention to. So that means, as you begin to be more mature, as you begin to be more objective, as you begin to have less and less loads, and those are taken care of through your own effort and asking for help through the prayers. What is ultimately going to happen is not that there is going to be, for example, see, the thing is, a situation may happen. In this case, in this verse, what is mentioned is dukkha. Dukkha, sanyoga, viyoga. This is the word he uses. So dukkha means unhappiness. It's not that unhappiness will never come. Things will happen, right? You hear of, let's say, in some country nowadays, in I think Germany is facing a big problem with all these refugees which are coming. Right? And sometimes you see the refugee camps, you go and visit, and how they live. And if you say, oh, it doesn't matter at all, oh, this is Ishvara, no. When you see people suffering, the order is, you do feel touched. There is no human heart which doesn't feel, you know, that's why what happens is, when you see a movie, you get moved. Some things move you. Because you think, and the movie knows how to what? Invoke emotions in you. Even though you know it is fake, it still touches your heart. You try saying yes.
Yeah, I know this very good.
So sometimes I and Surya also we cry in the movies. So that's true. You know very well that it is for. Now imagine if you don't know that it is, you think, I mean, if it is something in front of your eyes, it's not even a movie, you are going to be moved. To expect that Vedanta will make you this kind of a robotic, which will have no emotion at all, it's not what it is. A wise person is not robot. He's highly compassionate. Compassionate means somebody's suffering will touch. But what is then the difference between a normal person and the person who is growing? There is dukkha, sanyoga and viyoga. That is a very important, that something will happen which will produce the corresponding emotion, which it has to, but the ability to bounce back is what? Much faster, because of your understanding of this. And the intensity of emotion is what? Not so much that it leads you down into depression, because the story building has reduced. You just stay with what the event is. There is a corresponding emotion which is okay, but you also are able to see the bigger picture, in light of which this event, which otherwise had a huge proportion in your mind, is no longer like that. So that means the intensity is much less and the ability to bounce back is much faster. Dukkha Sanyoga Viyoga. That person is emotionally healthy.
Is this also, this correlates to the verse about the wise do not grieve?
Wonderful. That also correlates. In that case, what he was talking about, wise do not grieve because they know the nature of Atma. But you are right, it doesn't mean, so that means Atma is full and Atma is free from any emotion anyway. But the quality of mind which understands the nature of Atma is more or less objective, has taken care of emotions, but it is not emotionless. The emotion, you are not afraid. First of all, the first stage, as I explained, is what? You are actually acknowledging that is a growth process. You are acknowledging and you are undoing all the mix-ups that are there implicit in your emotions. Once all that happens, and then your ability to understand Vedanta becomes more and more, then over a period of time, what happens is the emotions will happen, but the depth will reduce dramatically, and also the ability to bounce back is much faster, because you see the bigger picture. And this is what I think Anna told me that when we just first came here, and we were talking about this book of my teacher that I love, and I'm doing it with some of my students. The book is called Value of Values. It's a nice little book, it's wonderful. And Anna told me that there is one story in it which I think somebody was upset with.
Yes.
Yeah? And the story goes like this, the story goes correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't totally remember, it's only because when you told me. So there is this man who gets the news that he was a big businessman, and he had a huge load of his what do you call, goods coming in that ship, and they costed a lot. So he gets the news, and he says that the ship has sunk. So what is his first reaction? What? That is the first reaction. Nobody can say, oh, it is all order of Ishvara. This is when you make your life unreal. Nobody will be able to relate to you. The first reaction is, what? The second is, so what? Then somebody says, what? That, hey, not only the goods are gone, so the goods are all gone, then your wife was in the ship. What? Then bouncing back. So what? That means, so this is where it is too much, it sounds artificial, But please understand, I want to tell you a real life story. Sometimes in our life, we go through deep losses, big losses. And people who go through those losses, it seems as though life has no other hope. You feel as though you can't live anymore. One of the real life example is the dean who recruited Surya. Real life example. The dean, he's no more there, but the dean who recruited Surya to this one of the best business schools in Bombay, he was a PhD from Harvard, extremely successful, very big businessman and a corporate leader, who was then given the task of running a business school. When his son was 18 years old, the son went for a fun joy ride in the car with his friends. There was an accident, and the only person who passed away was his son. He said, I didn't know how to live anymore. What? This is what? You can't avoid it. But are you then going to, what, rest of your life be sunk in depression? And keep repeating that life is not fair to me, life is not fair to me, and keep crying, and then life is whatever, and waste away? You have to come to this. So what is just, it's a symbolic. It's not like so what doesn't mean you don't care. That's not what so what is. So what means you have to find an ability to refine the meaning in your life. Bounce back. How did he bounce back? He told himself that my son I have lost, let me make it my life mission, vision, to give something really important to the young kids who are coming to my college. And what is the most important thing that I can give to these young kids, smart kids who are coming to my college? I can give them Vedanta. So that they grow up to be responsible, good human beings, good leaders. That is my contribution. That is my contribution. I'm not going to sit and sulk and waste away my life and be depressed. That's when 20 years ago he had courage to introduce Vedanta in the business school. And he himself knew a little bit of Vedanta. He was smart. He called one of the Swamis to give, Swamis cannot be a professor. So he will call them for 10 days in a year, 15 days in a year. And then what he would do is, based on that talk, he would do little clips of the talk, and then he would do a seminar class. Then, the day he saw Surya, he said, I have been searching for a person like you for last 20 years.
Like a business school Swami.
So that means, this is what we say. You convert your life from what to so what. doesn't mean that you are indifferent. It doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean that you are blocking your emotions and convincing it's all okay because everything is Ishvara. The event which is the saddest event of your life, you use it without denying this sadness. But you don't just sit and become this person who is just self-pitying and disturbed. You find a new meaning in your life and get things done through your own actions, and you become instrument through which so many people benefit. Dukkha Sanyoga Viyoga. Wise person. So that means now imagine the fears go away. Fears go away because no matter what comes in my life, I'm equipped to what? Deal with it. The same order which gives me some difficulty, the same order also gives me an ability to what? Come over it, provided I help myself. Trust in life. Trust in order. Not artificial equilibrium, which will, it is like a pressure cooker, Swamiji used to say. One day it will blow up. So this is how your journey for wisdom has to take off. Dukkha Sanyoga Viyoga Sa Nishchayena Yoktavyaha Yogaha Nirvinna Chetasa. The yoga is then pursued with clarity and purpose, and then the mind is not discouraged. And discouraged, dissatisfied, self-defeating mind, you have to make an effort to lift yourself up. So then, now, with all of this, right, now meditation is over, the ultimate, the goal of meditation is over, the emotional life, all of this is now talked about. The next topic is, what is this Ishvara that we keep referring to? What is the real nature of this Ishvara? That's the next topic tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.